Welcome to Flying Upstream, the podcast where we uncover the choices, practices, and wisdom that defy mainstream conventions. I'm Kristyn.
And I'm Luisa, and together we're here to illuminate the alternative paths that have shaped human experiences through the ages. In each episode, we'll examine ways to move beyond societal norms. We're passionate about how timeless wisdom and unique lifestyle choices can foster healthier, sustainable, and enriching lives.
Join us as we navigate, challenge, and celebrate the beauty and insight of walking the road less traveled. If you've ever felt like you're flying north for the winter while everyone else is flying south, you've found your flock.
Hey, free spirits, welcome back to another episode of our podcast. I am Luisa Anderson.
And I'm Kristyn Medeiros.
Today, we are digging into the fascinating world of Kintsugi, a centuries-old Japanese art that teaches us a powerful lesson about embracing imperfection. This art explores the ancient Japanese art form where broken pottery is repaired with precious metals, highlighting the cracks rather than hiding them.
That's right. Kintsugi has a pretty interesting story that started in the 15th century in Japan. According to legend, Shogun Ashikaga Yoshimasa, a renowned patron of the art, prized a broken Chinese tea bowl. He was unwilling to part with it, so he sent it back to China for repairs. Unfortunately, the bowl returned mended with unsightly staples, and this sparked a new approach, Kintsugi.
That's right, Kristyn. But Kintsugi has turned out to be more than just a repair technique. Today, it's deeply rooted in the philosophy of wabi-sabi, which is a Japanese aesthetic that embraces imperfections and finds beauty in the natural aging and wear of objects. What a concept, right?
Oh yeah, fascinating that this has become something of esteem and respect to take on this particular technique and method, especially because in today's world, people are obsessed with perfection and will spend any amount of money and time to get what they deem as perfection.
We see that even in relationships today. So many people walk around with a checklist. These are the things that I'm looking for in a person, and they have to be 6'3", blonde hair and blue eyes. It's a beautiful art form that celebrates what we all are, which is parts of us that are broken, just like there are parts of us that are whole, but our broken parts should still be acknowledged, even if we need therapy to mend pieces that still remain whole. I think of it as like that middle crack of metal. The one that I've been attracted to the most has been the ones that have gold and bronze in between. I think it's quite beautiful to embrace that passage of time that marks the use and the unique characteristics of what we are, and in this case, of what that pottery is and has been. I think it shows a life well lived, much like the pottery. It shows that it's been used. It shows that it has been moved around. It has been touched. It has been utilized for what it was intended and created for.
It reminds me of a friend who had this beautiful necklace, but she would never wear it because she was always afraid it would get broken or lost or damaged. So she never wore it. And so this necklace is still gorgeous, but she's never been able to enjoy it. She's never been able to wear it to special occasions because she's always too nervous about it. Yeah. The other thing this makes me think of is wrinkles on my face, because as we inevitably get older, of course, we get wrinkles, and people would always say, it's okay to have some wrinkles around your eyes and your mouth. It means you smile a lot. It means you laugh. You're enjoying life. And I love that in theory. Yes, I like to laugh, but I also don't know if I want those wrinkles. And I was thinking, what an interesting statement it would be if instead of covering it up with foundation and cover up, we actually drew on our wrinkles, maybe in gold, some gold makeup. Yeah. I think that would be fascinating and really embrace that. We do have wrinkles on our face too. Our face gets damaged by the sun and other environmental factors, to say the least. Why not highlight it? Why not say, hey, you know what? I'm 40 and this is my life. I've had some great things, I've had some not so great things, and my face tells that story, and I'm not shy about it. It is what it is.
I love that what it brings about is the art of living. It's not hiding how much life we've had. Generally speaking, the more wrinkles we have, the more life we've lived, because it means how much older we are. We think about how long we've lived and the representation of those wrinkles. When I used to look up my grandmother, who I love dearly, and she's passed now, I think she was almost 93 when she passed. She had quite a bit of wrinkles. And when I think about her, I think about the wisdom that she had at that age. When we think about our wrinkles and when we think about the use of things, I hope that someday we all can start to look at it as, hey, this is how much life I've lived, which in turn allows people to think about how much wisdom that person has, because that's my grandmother. Part of the beauty I have with her is that we both knew she was going to die. She knew, we both know we're going to pass and we're going to go on to another life or whatever is next for us, but she embraced whatever stage of her life so beautifully. And those wrinkles are a representation of how much life she's lived. Honestly, in 3 sentences, she could give me wisdom.
I think it's really sweet. I think a lot of it is how we talk about the world and life and even day-to-day interactions with the younger generation, with our children. It's not just about highlighting that it's very much okay to be imperfect, but also that it's necessary to be imperfect at times. Nobody's 100% perfect all the time. Last year, my daughter was in a Montessori school, and they were really big on teaching children real life skills. And one of those was setting the table. Once a week, a proper lunch, they would have a tea service. They would use real china for their teacups and the teapot. And I asked them, why not use plastic? They said, if it breaks because one of the children drop it, that's okay. They will learn the lesson that you need to carry it carefully and pay attention, and they will probably never drop it again. But if you teach them with plastic, they could drop it lots of times, and they won't learn the lesson that when you grow up and you have real mugs and plates, that you can't just drop them. You really need to pay attention and be careful. And so I thought that was just fascinating that you're trusting these 3, 4, and 5-year-olds. But the teacher was right. Having that opportunity to be imperfect, so important. And if you are imperfect, if they drop the tea set, so what? You learn your lesson and you move on. And that's probably one of the reasons your grandmother had so many awesome stories and so much wisdom to pass on, because she was imperfect and she learned so much through all of her mistakes.
This is so beautiful. And it is so right. I used to spend a lot of time with her, and I would see her every week, at least 2, 3 days a week. But when she passed, that had changed. I hadn't seen her for a couple of years. But prior to that, she was 91 years old. This woman was drinking whiskey straight out of shot glasses at that age and dancing at family parties. When people picture your 91-year-old grandma, if we're going to talk about imperfection, I think my grandma was the definition of it. Hey, listeners, we're taking a quick break to talk about something delicious and close to our hearts. Kristyn, you've got something exciting to share, right?
Absolutely, Luisa. When I went vegan, I found that having some go-to recipes really made the transition easier. That's why I've created a place to help everyone go from vegan curious to vegan confident.
That sounds so amazing. So where can our listeners find these resources?
They can visit my website, KristynMedeiros.com. I've packed it with all the tips and tricks that helped me change my lifestyle so that you can make your vegan journey smooth and enjoyable.
And there's more, right? I heard you're offering something special for our podcast listeners?
Yes, just for our listeners. Head on over to KristynMedeiros.com right now to start your path to becoming vegan confident. Get my favorite recipes that I really used when I was transitioning to veganism. It's all on my website.
That is awesome. Do not wait, folks. Visit KristynMedeiros.com today and take the first step towards a healthier, compassionate lifestyle. Kristyn, thanks for sharing this great resource.
Thank you, Luisa. I'm so excited to see how everyone's journey unfolds. remember, being vegan isn't just good for you, it's good for the planet too.
She lived so unapologetically. She lived her life to have a life well lived, which is essentially what life is all about, I think. I love that your daughter went to Montessori schools, and I love the concept of Montessori. I almost put both of my kids in Montessori schools for that reason, for the real life lessons. What I was thinking when you were sharing that story was, this is the reality. And I think about the way that we teach kids today outside of Montessori, just general public education. We give them the tools that are going to mask what the real result may be. What could really happen if I drop the china? Instead, what we tell them is, you don't have the capacity, the skills, or the ability, and I'm not going to trust you with it to potentially break something that's meaningful. But what is the meaning of the china? The meaning of the china is material, and it's beautiful, and it holds sentimental value sometimes to some people. But outside of that sentimental value, what we're telling them is that my trust in you to learn what happens when something breaks, something serious, something valuable, I don't have any trust in you. And therefore, I'm not even going to put you in the position to have to deal with the potential outcomes, which, what do we see in America today? Is adults who can't do that. When something real happens in life, a separation, a divorce, somebody may lose their job, may lose their home, we cannot handle it. But we just figured out why with your story. This is why. We're not given the opportunity to learn what the real consequences are. And it is true. They probably will never drop it again, and it probably will never break again. But we don't even give our kids the opportunity to learn that today.
You're totally right. It's so spot on. One of the points of the Montessori program is to give children that opportunity in a safe space. It's practice. It makes me think of the same thing. Years ago, I did Toastmasters, which is all about public speaking and leadership. I thought I was very good at public speaking until I actually started and I realized I wasn't that good. Their model is that everyone is there to support you. You get up in front of 10 to 20 people, you give your speech, you are nervous and anxious and flustered, and you stumble over your words, and it's so embarrassing. At the end, you just get love. Instead of people telling you that wasn't very good, you just get love. That's what they always would say. The best place to mess up is in their meetings, not on your business calls or where it has more important consequences. Do it where it's a safe place to mess up.
That acknowledges the fact that we are going to mess up. It brings about the fact that we are imperfect, that we're always growing, and that there is space for us to grow. There are places where we are nurtured and are to be nurtured and are to be loved and are given the space for us to improve and become better versions of ourselves without the judgment, so that when we do leave that nurturing space and face the real world experiences, like the business meeting that is literally going to cut a deal that's going to change your life. We have done this, and we have been broken and failed and done that speech wrong so many times that we now have the confidence to stand up there and give this speech. And even if we are shaking in our boots, at least we can show from here up the confidence that we need to be successful. But if it's never acknowledged that it's okay for us, not even know where to start, not be nurtured, not given the space to grow, learn, and continue to become better versions of ourselves, then I feel like it's putting on this mask of the world we live in today, to be honest.
Uh-huh.
Putting on a
Absolutely.
mask of what's not real. That's not real.
That's true. That's true. And I think, as we've said, it has to start with the youngest generation and work its way up from there. And for people who are already in their adulthood and maybe realizing that they never had that safe place to make mistakes and to acknowledge that imperfection is not only critical, but expected. There's lots of groups out there that do support that, like Toastmasters. There are places for that. I think anybody who has been humiliated and embarrassed in front of people knows how terrible that feels and would be happy to partner up and help you if you feel like you need a safe place to work through some of that.
Something else that I was thinking about is we're talking about imperfections. When that bowl is broken, when it drops and it falls and it hits the ground and breaks into those pieces, what it does is also acknowledge that those pieces also have the opportunity of coming back together. So it's not invaluable. Just because it's broken, it doesn't mean it's lost its value. It means that the right hands that appreciate the art of it, in this case, the pottery, haven't picked it up and taken the time to put it back together. We think if it's not absolutely well put together, even with gold, that something broken has lost value, which is the way that we look at it in the modern world. Once it falls, we don't even think about it twice. We just toss it and we're done with it. There are so many more opportunities and so many more options because we can put it back together the way that it was, or we can get creative now that we have this metal and put it back together however we want to put it back together, which is something that we have the freedom to do.
What you're talking about is sustainability and upcycling. Instead of just discarding an object, you're making it into something completely new. This is so trendy now. They're making clothes out of cacti and soap out of discarded coffee grains, what some people view as garbage or broken or the yucky part of food. So many people are rebuilding it with a little bit of gold to turn it into something new. It almost is a literal and figurative model for repurposing and revaluing items. We think that they may no longer have value, but actually we can just alter it a little bit, rebuild it, and create something brand new that there is value for and there is demand for, moving forward that sustainable lifestyle that is so important now.
Yeah, I love that. That's so beautiful. And I think from a business perspective too, that also contributes to that. Looking at things differently that you've talked about, which is like upcycling and giving it new use or looking at it in another way. I think about small businesses. I feel like we started out in a world where that's what thrived. Little mom and pop shops. If anybody is into Hallmark movies, which I'm highly obsessed with, you always see those love stories there in these small towns. There's the one supermarket that the Anderson family owns, and then there's the sewing shop that the Medeiros family owns. That's how the world used to run. Then we threw that to the side and became so big business, and we all go to these huge department stores to buy things, taking away our ability to be creative, are taking away the very idea of what we came here to express to this world, which is we all have creativity within us that we should all be expressing, but we can do that for ourselves. We don't need to sell out to these big corporations that will make us change our design, whatever our product is, whether it is fashion or our makeup line or whatever, to fit one big market, because that's what they're trying to do, is sell it to as many people as possible, versus the way that we create individually. And we've taken away that power for small business, but I think it's coming back. We're getting that back because there is value in those small little businesses and in those tiny little niches that people create that you don't see anyone else doing, because that is the creativity. It is the power of taking something that we have come up with and repurposing it in a way that meets a specific demand. Maybe that's for only 100 people. Maybe that's only for 200 people, but something that resonates with that specific niche that allows those people to look at something and appreciate it for exactly whatever form it has ended up in, that business owner has created it in, which contributes to the idea of, okay, just because something doesn't look the way that the majority thinks it should look, whatever the majority finds to be perfection, it doesn't mean that it doesn't have any use. It doesn't mean that it's imperfect and it's lost its value. I think that it's the complete contrary of that. I think we've given it value to a different group of people, maybe.
Have you ever experienced a setback, a broken dream, or a loss that left you feeling shattered? Kintsugi teaches us that these experiences, just like the cracks in a bowl, become part of our story. We can choose to see them as weaknesses, or we can embrace them as the golden scars of our resilience.
All right, free spirits, that's all the time we have for today on Flying Upstream.
We hope this episode sparked your curiosity and ignited a desire to explore the extraordinary paths less traveled.
Even when the current feels strong, a whole world of possibilities awaits.
We'll see you next time on the other side of mainstream.
So keep questioning, keep challenging, and most importantly, keep flying upstream.